Good evening, my name is KarQ. I'm back with the suggestions box series on the channel where we take a look at suggestions for the game of Overwatch, whether that's perks or other parts of the game related. Some of these are a little bit old and outdated, so make sure to continually comment on suggestions you'd like to see in the game. Maybe I've answered it before, maybe I haven't, and even if I have, I can answer it again because not everybody watched the old videos, and even I don't remember half the suggestions half the time. In any case, let's begin with what we have so far for this episode. So, first suggestion is that the push robot will move as long as a team has more players on it than the opposing team. And the more players than the opposing team on it, it will move faster. It only stops when there are no players or a tied number of players are on it. No, I think this would... It's a little unintuitive. People are hopping in and out and the robot is just doing one of those things, and it's not really like turning around back and forth because he has a little bit of an animation there. I think that's a little bit too unintuitive for push. I think push as a concept in game mode is perfectly fine right now. I think the only thing that could happen is that if nobody is on it for a prolonged period of time, it slowly starts walking at a much slower rate back to the neutral point. All right, next, I have a couple of perk ideas for Ram and Venture. For Ram, it's rather a simple change, but I think it could work. The Nanite Leash, which would replace the Nanite Repair, where Vortex now has 100% lifesteal. It keeps the healing idea, but also keeps it in line with how Vortex is normally meant to be used, which is throwing it at the enemy. I'm not entirely 100% sure if this is a good idea, but Vortex only does like what, 25 DPS? I don't know. Of course, getting multiple people on it would give a massive heal, but I don't think that would happen too often. Could be another addition because a lot of people don't take that perk right now where you sit in your Vortex, you heal. So maybe that could work as an addition. Another idea that I've seen with Ram's Vortex is that actually increase its hitbox range from like whatever it is now to like the true vertical range to actually pull down flying or floating heroes that are above you. Because as it stands, if you're high enough above it, you don't get sucked down. But we saw in the Ramattra trailer 3 years ago at this point, he did pull down the Echo and the Pharah and the Flyers, but that's not realistic at all. So maybe we can go in that direction instead. Next one, for Ventures, Heavy Charge. Sacrifice your current shield to empower your next shot with a 1-to-1 shield to damage conversion. So a maximum of 150 damage. Are you crazy? Maybe have it shoot and travel slightly slower than the regular shot, but give it more range, but give it a cooldown to be safe. No, because Venture inherently has the burrow. So you could get into a spot and or like use it and then get out so safely without much counterplay. You'll just instantly get deleted at close range for that kind of a burst. That is insane. No mega lol for those two, unfortunately. Next suggestion, owning a hero skin should unlock the weapon model as a weapon skin on its own. Yes, good suggestion. There are a lot of different gun and weapon models in the game that slightly change depending on the skin, and I think having access to all the different models and applying the mythic weapon or the different variations on it would be quite cool, and swapping it in between the skins. Separate the two entities, decouple them. I'm down for that. Next suggestion is that hero bands, map voting, perks, and stadium all share a common philosophy, which is to let players tailor their own Overwatch experience. So why not bring this to matchmaking? So add an option like a slide bar to let us choose our own balance between queue times and match quality. For example, the skill range within the whole lobby. Some people hate getting the unless teammates even in quick play, while some others literally don't care and just want to play. So let people voice their expectations. We already know Gavin is smart enough to make this algorithm possible. You know, that's actually a pretty good idea in the sense that you probably have a baseline matchmaker or maybe keep it as is. But if you specifically want to be put into wider skill range parameters, you can opt in or opt for a tighter skill parameter or MMR parameter, and then that'll probably increase your queue time. So that's a trade-off. Probably within reason. I do think this is actually kind of a cool idea, but it has to not be like too extreme, because then what changes that between like queuing into like a super wide match, because that's going to be pretty imbalanced, and you have to ensure everybody else in that lobby opted into that option, because anybody who's just queuing with tighter or like smaller regular parameters cannot be pulled into that. So that also might fragment the queue times a little bit more overall for everybody. So people who want faster queues might still be getting slower queue times than pre-patch if they implemented this, because everybody else opted into the other version. You know what I mean? So maybe that's one of the reasons why this isn't a thing. I might also be wrong. I'm no engineer. Next suggestion is ultimate perks. It adds another layer of complexity to the game, but since ultimates are only used a handful of times throughout a match, I don't think this would be too much. For example, perk 1, Bob shoots projectile rockets that deal 15% more damage for minus 50% fire rate. Or perk 2, Bob deals critical damage to heroes who are on fire, similar to Mauga. So you're saying, well, these are examples. So you're saying everybody should have a perk option, like a third perk to boost or buff their ultimate in different ways. Is that what you're saying? That would mean you'd also have to remove all the ultimate changing perks in the minors and majors in its current state, which I think is fine. Adding a third idea where you can change the perks is kind of at least to me, a natural progression of the game, but maybe they're cooking something completely different in season 21, who knows? But I don't hate it. I think perk 1 with the more damage and less fire rate reminds me of old Overload Molten Core Ultimate from Torbjorn, where the turret changes from shooting small shots into the big bursty ones. And the second one is kind of it's like a very unique interaction where like you're kind of incentivized as Ashe to dynamite the person that Bob is shooting on for more amplified damage. Not a bad idea. I don't hate this. Next is for Stadium suggestion, new item idea, cash compensation when your bullets are eaten by D.Va. Oh, to make some money. Yeah, could be good in some games it won't be effective, but if you play into a lot of projectiles, that could be cash money for a D.Va. I don't hate it. I think that's fine. The next suggestion is I want a map maker to see the insanity the community would come up with. Yeah, I think so too. I think map makers and giving some agency to the players is amazing. We saw it in Halo 3, at least I did growing up. People making some crazy maps and some of them being implemented into the actual game later on in the MLG playlist. If you're an old head like me, I'm turning 33 this year. Yeah, if you were there, you know what I'm talking about. Most of the suggestions today are pretty good. The next one, after you choose a perk, you have a countdown of 3 seconds for that perk to activate. If you pick the wrong one, you can change the perk within those 3 seconds. And I guess if you continually make the same mistake, you can do it again. Or maybe it's just a one-time thing. I think that's pretty good too. I've definitely picked the wrong perk and I'd have to live with it for the rest of the game, which sucks. There's an exploit where some people will just leave the game and then rejoin if they want to continue playing the hero so they can reset their perks. Alternatively, I think there's another suggestion I saw in the previous weeks. I don't know if it's in here. I might not roll it when I scroll through, where like if you're in spawn, you have an option to fully reset the perks. So you have none, but you have to fully rebuild them again. So maybe both options, a 3-second buffer window plus a in spawn, you have a choice to completely wipe, but you'd have to obviously go through the process of building it all over again, which is the downside of making the wrong choice. So yeah. Next one, random take. Zarya's grenade jump perk should be integrated into the base kit as the only buff she needs. Why are we buffing Zarya? I think people want her nerfed. She gets banned a lot. Not a good suggestion. Next suggestion, you should be able to bind Wu Yang's ult for him and his ult for a teammate to 2 separate buttons. What button would you put it on? I don't know if we have any buttons available. Well, maybe on PC, but on console, do we have any buttons that are free right now? That being said, I think having different kinds of activations would be kind of cool. This is a tangent thought. I play a lot of Deadlock, and you have a lot of different active item or usage bindings where like if you double tap the button really fast, you can self-cast it if that ability is able to be self-cast. Because right now, as it stands, I think it's when you press the Wu Yang ult, you have a choice between clicking a teammate or I think the right click or whatever it is on console to cast it on yourself. But I'm used to actually pressing it, and if I don't want to use it, I usually right click to cancel. But now right click is a self-cast, which means I've self-casted the Wu Yang ultimate by accident when I just didn't want to cast it all together. So more quality of life options to allow you to tap twice in really quick succession to self-cast, and by default, if you just press it while looking at a teammate like Anna's Nano Boost, it will activate or cast onto them, is what I would like to see. Next, Kiriko perk idea. Kitsune Rush is able to heal. It wouldn't be too much healing, maybe on the same level as Mei's Skating Brink perk, but I don't know. I just started playing Kiri and I found it weird how her ult doesn't heal at all. I've been informed that it used to, but it was broken and it got changed, so that's why I think it could be a small bit of healing. I don't think every ultimate from the support needs to have a healing compartment to it, like Ilari's ult and Baptiste's ult, some of the other ones. I think Kiriko's ult is already loaded enough that we don't need to add more healing to it. It was not in there previously. That wasn't the broken part. The broken part was, I think, the cooldown refresh cycle used to be 3x the speed, so all your cooldowns would come up 3 times faster if you sit in it. Right now it's nerfed to 2x, and I think attack speed that everybody gained while sitting in it got nerfed as well, but I don't think it ever had healing on it. Somebody could also correct me if I'm wrong and I'm too lazy to look it up right now. That being said, overall the take or the suggestion, I don't think the ultimate needs more healing at this current time. I think the ultimate is fantastic and strong in its own right. It's a very big tide swinger. It's a good initiation tool, relatively good defensive ult, not by the standard definition of defensive ult like, you know, Zen's or Lucio's ult, but it's a good reactive counter ultimate to like deal with an onslaught of offensive stuff coming in, because you get all your cooldowns faster, you move faster, blah, 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 blah. All in all, I don't think Kitsune Rush needs healing. Next suggestion, show the live scoreboard on replay so you can tab at any time to see the stats at any given moment. All replays are deterministic, the stuff that matters anyway, so it should be already be tracking all the damage and healing output correctly. Agreed. I don't know why that's not a thing. Good suggestion. It's not a big deal, but Winston's right click or the charge zap thing, right? should have a heads up display or a HUD element to indicate the charge amount. I've seen posts from players who never realized it was a charged ability. In my opinion, the sound effects and weapon particles alone don't really do a great job at fully indicating the max charge. Almost every other charged weapon fire or ability in the game has a UI element near the reticle to conveniently visualize charge rate or limit, like BAP boots or Doom Punch. Some even provide numerical values like Life Weaver Heal or Ursa Ult. The only outlier I'm aware of is Zenyatta's right click, but his sound effects and visuals are slightly more dynamic and convey this information and feedback more clearly. I think the orbs actually like show up on the character to see how many you've charged up for him for feedback. Anyways, if you use Winston's default circle reticle, you can see the change subtly indicated with the reticle itself, but custom reticles lose this feature. So I was actually going to interrupt. Thank God I didn't jump to the gun. I was going to say, I think the default crosshair for Winston, or not default, but you have to turn on dynamic crosshair or whatever that setting is to see it like open and close dynamically. It's the same as Hanzo's, where like if you have it open, your crosshair tightens up as you hold your arrows for more tension versus opening, and that's the only option to see it for Winston. I am down for an extra UI indicator. I don't think that's a hard thing to implement, and I think it can only help Winston players, so not opposed to this whatsoever. Next, add a stat tracker charm that counts your kills so you can show off. Agreed. Nothing to add to that. Stat tracker is amazing for Counter-Strike. It's really cool to see that. I think more ways to show progression and hero mastery in this game are welcomed. I have some criticisms of their current progression stuff. I think the Lord icon in Marvel Rivals is like amazing because everybody can visually see it. Right now, I think your color of your hero portrait changes when you're in the champ or hero select. You can have the big glowing stars and levels, which I think is like a nice medium ground, but I do think the pose could be like, or the art can change depending on the skin. Not too much, but just a different angle. Maybe one of their emotes where their head is turned. It's more subtle things like that would be really cool. And then you can even see it on the bottom left of the hero when they play in first person. And if you press tab on the scoreboard, you should be able to see that as well. Current state, I don't think you can. All right, next, another thing I think that could be added to Stadium is getting money while on the point, because I'm kind of sick of having to sit on the payload or point while every other person on my team runs off and farms money. Now, there are some heroes that can be active while sitting on the objective, but I agree. I think a small cash compensation for people who are doing the objective would be quite nice, and it should be split evenly among other people who are also standing on the objective as well. So like a fixed pool and then just, you know, divided based on how many people are in and out. Good suggestion. Next would be a fun elemental system game mode. Imagine hitting someone with water and then they instantly freeze when hit by a Mei. Could be a cool workshop and fun mode to do for an LTM. Down for that. Resetting perks in the spawn room without swapping heroes, but it either resets one or both perk levels. This is what I said earlier. Not too much to add to this. I actually mentioned this just before, and I feel like I've read this before, and clearly it came up again. We rolled it. Good suggestion. Resetting the perk completely in the spawn. You just got to build it up again. Down for this. Okay, last suggestion. A little bit silly, but I don't really care for the super minimalist or logo-esque profile icons. I'm referring mostly to the eyeless hero silhouette icons that seem to be the majority of what we get. I would just like some options with things like line art or proper shading like the banners. So this is actually tied to the hero progression rewards that I saw. If you play like a lot of Baptiste or Ana, you get the silhouette portrait and stuff. But I feel like this all just pales in comparison to Rivals' Lord portrait idea. I think we could do a lot more in this category to show off a bit more. Sometimes when I'm like queuing up and I see I have like the level 1000 Ashe, I'm like, okay, that looks pretty cool. But like nobody else in the game can see it. And I think one thing that Rivals as well is when you press tab, you can see who's a Lord icon on either team. And I think adding that into like when you press the scoreboard button and other ways to show that off that seem a bit more recognizable would be kind of cool. Anyways, that's it for the suggestions box this week. Thanks for submitting. I'll submit some more and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.